Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I'm your disheveled goblin host Daniel Green, and today I am so thrilled to kick off the Fantasy News with a cover reveal from the legend himself, Joe Abercrombie. His upcoming release, The Devils, is less than a year from hitting shelves, and we have two variant covers to check on out. I love them both, though for me personally, with what I'm assuming this story's gonna come across like, with it being Joe Abercrombie, I prefer the first one. It's got a more like sinister edge to it. And this art is brought to us by Will Stale. And of course, it has a synopsis that reads, Europe stares into the abyss. Plague and famine stalk the land, monsters lurk in every shadow, and greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions. Only one thing is certain. The elves will come again, and they will eat everyone. Sometimes the darkest paths lead toward the light, paths on which the righteous will not dare to tread. And so, buried beneath the sacred splendor of the celestial palace is the secret chapel of the Holy Expediency. For its congregation of convicted monsters, there are no sins that have not been committed, no lines that will not be crossed, and no mission that cannot be turned into a disastrous bloodbath. Now, the hapless brother Diaz must somehow bind the worst of the worst to a higher cause, to put a thief on the throne of Troy, and unite the sundered church against the coming apocalypse. When you're headed through hell, you need the devils on your side. Leave it to Joe Abercrombie to have a synopsis that in itself is more tantalizing than some entire books that I have read.
God damn.
But from here, we're gonna do back-to-back
in-sheet
reveals for the Malazan editions that are being worked on over at the Broken Binding. We've had some in-sheets revealed, and of course, between the two, I gotta love the big old dragon. Look at the big old dragon, everybody. Oh my God, it's so big. Not to add like any pressure unduly onto Broken Binding, but like this is huge for them. They've invested so many resources, and there's a frothing fountain, of Malazan fans who really want a new edition of the series. So sticking this landing is gonna be a big deal. No pressure though. I'm kidding. This looks amazing. I'm so excited.
Don't screw it up.
From here, though, we're just going to jump on into two pieces of quickie news, one of which is the fact that there is another Bobiverse book available for pre-order now. This is one of my favorite kind of lighthearted, cozy sci-fi reads, which is not as common as cozy fantasy for sure, but if you're looking for just an easy to burn through, wonderful time, surprisingly thought through and intense wish fulfillment with consequences cozy sci-fi read, yeah. Definitely check out Bobiverse. And then finally, Keanu Reeves is returning to Berserker for the Lost Book of B, a prequel to the previous collaboration release, flashing back to the days of Genghis Khan. And apparently this will be a standalone prequel. It will be released August 21st of 2024. And then we have some kind of sad fantasy science fiction news because Furiosa has hit theaters, and despite getting, from what I've seen, very positive critical praise nearly across the board, it is the lowest #1 box office for Memorial Day film in 29 years. The lowest since the release of the movie Casper. Yes, that one. As of recording, the latest reports have Furiosa pulling in just north of $31 million its opening week against a budget of $168 million. And there's absolutely a conversation to be had about movie budgets being out of control, but this is certainly not the most egregious case we've seen of that. And especially with the legacy of Fury Road in mind, this budget doesn't seem out of control. I'm actually really shocked by this news. Mad Max Fury Road, I think, is still nearly undisputedly in like the top 5 action films of the last couple of decades, so a prequel involving Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy I thought was gonna hit the box office with a haymaker, but the interest just doesn't seem entirely there. And I've thought about it quite a bit and can't place exactly why. By no means is this absolutely abysmal. It is still hitting #1. Post run here, and just wanting to add a couple more cents to this conversation after specifically watching Philip DeFranco's coverage of it in his PDS today for me, yesterday for you. And while I think he did a great job covering it, there's this continual narrative that comes up anytime a movie underperforms at the box office that movie theaters as a whole are dying. dying, and these articles seem to recently forget all of the box office records that have been smashed through. And it's just, look, movie theaters have been dying in the same way that publishing has been dying. It's kind of a permanent state in their history. I remember when I was a kid, movie theaters were going to die because flat screens at home were finally a thing. Before that, it was because Blockbuster came into existence. And before that, it was because, oh, TVs are entering the home for the first time. That'll kill movie theaters. I agree movie theaters will likely have to change, adapt their business models. But I am extremely skeptical that they will just altogether die out, and instead they will have to adapt. But let me know what you think. Next news. For this next story, it's not exactly sci-fi related, but it's one of those fun fantasy news nuggets that is a real-world headline that in our childhoods would seem like it's ripped straight out of a science fiction novel, and for me, that's certainly enough justification to include it here today. So let's go ahead and talk about the fact that apparently, at a summit in Seoul, several tech giants involved in the development of artificial intelligence took a pledge to include kill switches within their systems. My problems with this come in two parts. One, the language around this seems to be very much so directed toward trying to constrain the artificial intelligence itself and cast blame toward the technology, when I don't believe the threat of artificial intelligence comes from the technology itself. It comes from the utilization of the technology by bad actors who happen to be human beings. And yes, it sounds very nice for these big tech companies to say, I solemnly swear we'll include these kill switches, but you aren't all of them. This was only a select few of the companies who are developing this kind of tech, which means there's going to be other people who aren't constrained by this pledge, but also the companies, and this is the second part, who took this pledge. It's non-binding and comes with no actual penalties for not following through or committing to it in any way, shape, or form. Just to clarify though, I love the invention of AI. I think it's so cool, it's just gonna cause troubling times, and we need to restrict its utilization in the market until we can mitigate the impact it's going to have to help the people it could potentially hurt. That's what I think most people are really asking for, and this pledge addresses essentially none of that. That was sad though, so let's continue on into some quickie, happy fun time news. We got a thick fantasy news, we gotta keep moving. And for that quickie fun time news, Jeffery Wright is going to reprise his role in the Last of Us universe for season 2. That's right, he's going to be reprising his role as Isaac, which he voiced in the game, and that seems like a no-brainer for me. Jeffery Wright is a proven actor, not only in general, but for science fiction, and I would just like to see him in this. Please and thank you. That is my response to this headline. And in the last bit of happy quickie news, Three Body Problem has been renewed for season 2. I'm very sorry I have not gotten you my season 1 review yet. I put it on hold to do a deep dive into all 3 Planet of the Apes movies, and I currently have like 6 hours of footage of me watching the Planet of the Apes movies I need to edit through, but I don't think I'm actually gonna do that because the video is just not turning out very well, so I might scrap it and go back to just doing Three Body Problem. If you'd like my quickie review for all 3 of the already out Planet of the Apes movies in terms of on video and demand, there's another one that's like, I think still in theaters. They're pretty good. Not as great as some people who are not angry, but like upset at my dismissal of them in the comment section led me to believe, but especially if you're just looking for a great central character that is unlike anything you'll ever seen before, Caesar, Andy Serkis's character, big surprise, highlight of the entire franchise. Everything around him, mixed bag. Some great, lot not, gets better from the first movie onward, and check them out. That's my quickie review. Season 2 of Three Body Problem's been renewed.
What just happened?
And if you want some ranty, Daniel, I'm gonna hold back and not give it entirely here because it feels like kicking a horse while it's already down. We've gotten the trailer full length for the next Beetlejuice movie. Beetlejuice, oh.
We must move on. We cannot linger.
And it looked form factor. It was exactly what you'd expect, beat for beat, for a nostalgia bait remake of a movie that was popular from decades past with a bunch of the old cast returning. No disrespect meant, and if you're gonna enjoy this, wonderful, but from me, seeing them just rehash a bunch of jokes and all of them land not as well as the original movie and not really add anything new to the mix and using that like slow, dramatic rah version of the iconic song from the first movie, it's just like, oh.
What an incredibly sweet gesture, but I think I'll pass.
But before we get into some interesting Brando Sando collaboration news, a quick word from today's sponsor.
Factor.
Factor is an awesome home delivery service that makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. I've been trying to work on not only like reducing my grocery bill a little bit, but also eating healthier. I've been packing on the pounds since I moved to Boston, and Factor has been a big contributing factor on getting that scale to start going the opposite direction with their pre-portioned sizes, as well as proper exercise. It also makes it easier for Kayla during the work week to not have to just have these full home-cooked meals every single day, but we can still have that quality taste. Factor lets you choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, and avoid meat, or simply eat a well-balanced diet. And with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ins to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. The meal plans range to 4 to 18 meals a week, and you can add more or reduce the number depending on your specific needs, or skip a week if you need to, for going to travel. It's so easy to just heat up for 1 to 2 minutes in the microwave, and you're good to go. And I do not like the anti-microwave snobbery that stay to the points, Daniel. Personal recommendation, try out the pasta dishes first. I think they really nailed those, and just round it out with whatever sides you want. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code GREEN50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code GREEN50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month's order. Thank you, Factor, and go get some yum yums, goblins. Bye! Now, I'm absolutely, of course, thrilled to announce that Sanderson has joined the charity project here on the channel and released in his weekly update his own encouragement for people to donate to Horizon's local organization here in Boston to help homeless children. And with that kickoff and donation, with 2 weeks left in the competition to help decide my next tattoo, Sanderson is firmly in second place, second only to ML Wong. Yes, the underdog has secured the lead, which is just another reason for me to love you, the goblins, so much. So if you'd like to see the full context of what I'm talking about, video context right here. Just know we're doing some badass stuff, and you all are getting an opportunity to decide my next tattoo. But this takes us to talking about One Piece continuing to just kick ass as a franchise. And that is because One Piece is officially the most watched series on Netflix for the second half of 2023 with 71.6 million views. One annoying side tangent that shouldn't actually matter, but I just want to get this out of the way. I see some people make the comparison of oh, Mr. Beast gets more views on one of his videos. First of all, yes, and that's incredibly impressive. But I would also say, as a series, it's harder to get people to commit to watching, several hours of content to be able to create a narrative through line than a guy who's gonna just blow up a yacht with missiles for money. One's a 10-minute commitment versus hours. So I don't think it's a fair comparison, though full credit and respect to the guy who's running my platform right now, obviously. I just don't think they're proper comparisons, but I also don't think using the saying apples to oranges really is fair because those are very comparable things, but that's been talked about to death online.
Where are we?
How did we get here?
Let's move on to talking about actual One Piece content. This is good news, and I really hope that season 2 is able to retain a lot of that audience. In hindsight, it kind of makes sense that One Piece would be this successful on Netflix since it was received critically well, and well by most fans. A lot of people are aware of the name One Piece, they just don't like manga or anime, so seeing it in live action is gonna draw in a ton of curious people who wanna see what the hype's about. Those 541.9 million viewing hours are nothing to turn your nose up at, and is genuinely an astounding level of success. I just fear a lot of those people are gonna go, yeah, season 1 was charming, now I'm gonna move on. I hope not. And the smart bet, in my opinion, is usually to back charming pirate fantasy. I think a lot of people think pirates are cool even outside of fantasy. And there's room for improvement for season 2, and if that's taken into account and we get an even better display from this live action show to make even the rest of the fans happy. I can't believe I'm gonna say this. Could One Piece truly be the next Game of Thrones? It felt weird. I didn't like saying that. It felt bad. But as Netflix does well, they also do poorly. And we had our first sneak peek for the season 4 of Witcher, which was a dialogueless zoom in on Liam Hemsworth. And it's exactly what you would expect from a not very confident trailer unveiling a recasting there where the fans are not happy about. I mean, this is kind of a worst case scenario for Witcher at Netflix. As someone who wants to see this do well, recover, do better. I don't think it will. As someone who wants to see that though, how could it get worse? Your main actor left because he had creative differences that the fans agree with, and he was kind of the person who got this ship in the water on the first place, and now you've replaced him with someone who can be, no offense to Liam Hemsworth, easily memed on as like a diet version of Henry Cavill. It's, oh. In my not as informed as like someone who's professionally involved with the marketing of these shows type's opinion, but someone who really knows what fans like to see, I think the better call would have actually been to show or wait until you have a good amount of Liam Hemsworth's best display as the character. Show him talking, show him delivering some lines, committing to some action that, you know, we saw Henry Cavill do. Give us some indication of the level of quality commitment we have gotten from this replacement actor. I believe Liam Hemsworth is seeing this as a great chance for him to win over a fan base, so show me that. Unless it's not there. And in a story I'm covering because I think it's genuinely interesting, also think it's kind of a good opportunity for a tiny bit of self-promo, we've seen a couple of headlines here from the MCU about simplifying the level of commitment and overwhelming hours you need to watch just to be able to get the full story of a character you like with the MCU, which is something I touched on within my How the Cosmere Could Possibly Be the Next MCU video I just released. Check it on out, self-promo done. But this does touch on one point I wish I had conveyed a bit better in that video. I tried to make the point that consuming the Cosmere is a lot simpler than trying to keep track of one character you're a big fan of at this point within the MCU. Like, let's just say you're a fan of Captain America or the lineage of Captain America. The amount of content you gotta consume for that can be a bit unwieldy, whereas if you're just a fan of Vin in the Cosmere, Mistborn, first trilogy, 3 books, done. It's more approachable in that sense, but the way I said it in that video, I think it came across like I was trying to say consuming the MCU is more unwieldy than consuming the Cosmere, which is absolutely an insane thing to say. Hundreds of hours of books versus, you know, dozens and dozens of hours of movies, not even in the same ballpark. But keeping the line of just one Cosmere character because of the restraint of crossover versus the MCU at this point, that's where I think, okay, it becomes more balanced in the other direction. The level of crossover becomes confusing, whereas with Cosmere, there's been more of a restraint, which, as counterintuitive as it seems for a cinematic universe, is for its benefit. And then the final point about the Cosmere actually having an end and providing greater structure for a cinematic universe, just go watch the video. Ends for a cinematic universe are a good thing, despite what Marvel and now Star Wars and stuff are trying to insist. But this takes me to a really exciting trailer, probably the best trailer we've gotten for fantasy news this last 2 weeks. Sorry for not doing one last week, it was a slow news week. And that is for Elden Ring, Shadows of the Erd Tree story trailer. And this looked so good. As I'm beginning to pull back a little bit on videos here to focus on writing, as I'm trying to go trad with my next book, Better Dead, and I'm really trying to focus on that, so expect like maybe 2 to 3 videos here a week. Most of them gonna be book reviews, because I like reading while I'm writing to kind of like inspire me, and always fantasy newses. I might also, whenever I'm needing to be taking a break from writing, be jumping on Twitch to stream Elden Ring once again, because that is probably the most fun I've ever had streaming. As for my thoughts in the actual trailer, as with most things Souls related and From Software related, I don't understand much of what's happening, but I'm just incredibly excited about it. But a trailer for the thing that largely inspired the Souls-like game genre, if you want to do a deep dive into how that came to be, we also had another fan-made trailer from Studio Eclipse drop for Berserk, the Black Swordsman, to be released in 2025. And one, it's kind of become like a monthly thing here on Fantasy News to get some kind of fan-made trailer from Berserk. But also, I've seen some people be negative about this, and I understand why. There are a lot of fan trailers out there with big promises that don't come to fruition. I even just like watching these. They are cool, and I want to root for these studios to be able to put something out. I enjoy the animation style that's more true to the original anime we got for the studio that's trying to do the actual post-Eclipse arc than necessarily this animation style, though I do think it's doing its own thing really well and impressively, so obviously I'm just excited to consume both if they succeed. Okay, I'm gonna level with y'all. This is now officially the final week of the Kickstarter for my definitive edition of the first 2 Lawful Time books put into one. I want to just do one last push. This is the final one, and I want to do my own personal upgrade that'll be a positive for everyone who's already backed and an additional incentive for anyone who's on the edge of considering. And that is a guaranteed promise that I will smoochy the autograph page that I sign in each and every single one. That's right, not only will you be getting a signed Lawful Times Definitive Edition, but you will be getting a certified smoochied Lawful Times Definitive Edition. I can hear some people already doubting, Daniel, how are you going to do all this smoochy smooching? Well, it's quite simple. They send me a box with all the different pages to sign. When I get the box, I'm going to open them and just go through it. I'll put a video of me doing it on Instagram to prove. Bam. Bryce, don't say I don't do the absolute most for Wraithmark whenever I can. This isn't against like Kickstarter's terms of service, right? It's not bathwater, it is just smoochies. And then I hate to praise Amazon, but factually I have to do it news, and actually I'm just kind of happy for the success of this show. News. Fallout has shattered records for any Prime show, with being the first streaming show outside of Netflix to accumulate over 2 billion minutes viewed in consecutive weeks by amassing another 2.6 billion for its 8-episode drop. Just to clarify there, shows have done it before from Netflix, but this is the first time Prime for consecutive weeks has gone over 2 billion minutes for a show. And I'm kind of surprised to see it. I thought the binge it all at once drop from Prime would actually hurt Fallout in the long run, but maybe it's the word of mouth, maybe I'm overestimating the benefit of week-to-week releases, but Fallout has shown to have legs, and that's great because this show deserves the hype and praise it's been getting. And I think season 2, with the way season 1 left off, has the potential to be even better. And I have a full review of the first season if you'd like to go check that on out. But in the final news of the day, Kindred by Octavia Butler is going to be getting a special edition release over at Conversation Tree Press. This is probably my favorite Octavia Butler book. If you have not consumed it, this is more just me finding an excuse to recommend an amazing Octavia Butler story. And if you have read it, special edition. Look at how pretty. But before we get into the Indie Pub promo of the day, we have some more vlog type videos over on the Patreon, as well as an exclusive me reacting to fan fiction video that Kayla is currently working on that should be out in the next couple of days, as well as the first chapter unedited of Better Dead that I'm also currently querying to agents with. Wish me luck on the trad journey, which I'll be sharing with you here as it happens like a year down the road from now. And soon I'll be getting you all the data for the Neon Ghost release, the money there, where it all went, etc., etc. But now, a book written by one of the goblins within the Horde.
And today's self-pub promo is Army of the Cursed, War of the Last Day, Book 1 by Kareem Solomon. Pitched as a thrilling ride for those who love character-driven, action-packed, epic fantasy. Everybody knew the Cursed were coming. Nobody knew how to defeat them. The Goranians thought they were ready to face demons in battle. But when the foretold War of the Last Day begins, one fact becomes clear. The doom of mankind is just a matter of time. Now its fate rests in the hands of a hapless trio. A mage's apprentice who relies on her wits rather than magic. A princess who seeks the ultimate weapon against demons, but first, she has to survive the turmoil of civil war. And a warrior whose swordplay could prove more useful against a threat graver than the bandits infesting his village. Why those three in particular? How can they possibly kill who cannot be killed? Well, that's what they must figure out together, and they must figure it out soon enough, because nigh is the ruination of the entire human race. Nigh is the age of the cursed.
Thank you everyone for tuning on into this episode of Fantasy News. Thank you Factor for sponsoring today's video, and like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to get all that bonus content, and have a good one, y'all.
The